Welcome back to Andy Tube, and this is part 22 of my Singer Model 404 restoration. In this part we're going to start installing parts back into the face of the machine, and we have to work from the back of the face out. So what I'm going to start with is the thread take-up lever parts. And I'm going to pre-assemble some of them because it's easier than assembling them on the face. But in preparation, you would want to put a little oil up in here where the thread take-up lever hinge stud goes. And I brush oil on the needle bar crank and in here, and on most of the parts. The other thing you want to do is both the parts that go here and here have set screws. So before you begin, before you begin your assembly, you just want to go in there and loosen those set screws out so they don't block the part from sliding in. So here are the parts that I'll be using, and I'll show you a close-up picture of them real quick. Okay, then I'll start the assembly here with the thread take-up lever, which is already attached to the thread take-up lever link, and it attaches to the body with a cap screw, and this part goes into the body called the thread take-up lever hinge stud. So it goes in there, and then the set screw is tightened, and this part has a recessed area all the way around it for the set screw to set into, so it can go in any position into the mounting hole. But I like to mount it on the take-up lever link because it's easier to do out here than up on the machine. So it just goes onto the back side of the link, and then it's held to the link with the thread take-up lever link hinge stud cap screw. And this was one of those screws that's lefty tighty, righty loosey. So to tighten it, we'll just go left here. So if you want, you could put that hinge stud up in the machine and tighten the set screw up there, and then put the link on it and put in the cap screw. But the other part of this that I pre-assemble is the needle bar connecting link, and it goes on the back side here like that, and this long part faces out of the face, so it'll be facing you when you mount it into the machine, kind of like that. Now what holds the connecting link and the take-up lever all to the needle bar crank is this thread take-up stud. Remember taking that off? And I want to talk about a couple features of this stud before we get started. This is like an oil slot, where we talked about oil ports before. This slot allows the oil to come in and follow a track and actually go inside of the stud and all the way to the back where the stud rests against the needle bar crank, back in there. And this has a flat area here that must be lined up properly with the set screw up here. So I would suggest, if you haven't done this before, that you just play around with it without the linkage, and that you put it in there and you see where that flat part lines up, and practice putting in the set screw so that you see what that's like. And I will tell you, an easy way for me is when you're on the flat part, that set screw goes inside the needle bar crank, so it's not level with it or above the needle bar crank. It's actually set down inside, below flush. And if you ended up on the round part of the stud instead of the flat, that set screw would actually be sticking up about a 1/64 of an inch. So I would suggest that you do that you play around putting it in and turning it and finding the flat spot. And what I've noticed is that the oil slot, when it's on the flat spot, the oil slot is about 4 o'clock on the face of a clock. That it sets at about 4 o'clock. And that's usually where the flat part lines up with the set screw. Let me pull it back out here and I'll show you what I mean. So here's the flat part right there. So if it was in there for the set screw, see, it's a little bit after 3, so 3:30 or 4 o'clock. It's not like this, it's not like that, because then you'll end up on this round part and the whole thread take-up system will be messed up. That set screw has to sit in this flat spot to work properly. So I'll just pre-install that. Actually, I think I'll leave that out for now. And let's go ahead and get this linkage up in there. And it seems to start easier by putting the hinge stud first up into the slot and getting it started a little bit. There. Then you can maneuver the connecting link and line it up with the hole in the needle bar crank, and just keep pushing them both forward until they both go all the way in and sit flush. I can turn the hand wheel here a little bit and check it. Then when we go to tighten them up, we'll push this all the way to the body of the machine, and we'll tighten the set screw from up above. So we'll just make sure it's seated all the way back, and we'll just go up there on the set screw, and we'll matter of fact, I gotta stand up so I can see that. Okay. So now I get up here, I can see that slot, and I can tighten that set screw down real firm while pushing that linkage into the body. And this linkage just has that recessed area all the way around, so it doesn't have to be turned a certain way like this side does. So this, the thread TakeUp stud, has to go through the upper part of the needle bar connecting link with the flat part lined up with the set screw. So we'll get it in there, and it's a little tricky to see down in there where is that set screw. I got it backed out enough here. Yeah. There we go. And then I'm going to turn that to about 4 o'clock there and tighten up that set screw. And I'll know that I'm on the flat spot if the set screw will countersink down into the needle bar crank. See, right now it's flush, but it's still going down, so it's down inside. And that means, that means that I am on the flat spot of that stud. So that is perfect. Okay. And then we can test it by just this will be a little stiff here. We can test it by turning the hand wheel. Let's get this up. It feels a little tight. I think I might have pushed this linkage in too hard, because it's not really spinning this easily. So let's see if I can get back up here so I got access to that set screw. Look down in there. I gotta come up a little bit. Okay, now I can see that set screw. Let me loosen that a little bit. Let me try it with that just loose. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And I think I'll put some oil in there while I'm here. Let's get some oil in there. I did brush a little bit of oil on those parts. So I'll put a little oil in the center there. And let's see if I can turn that up, and I'll put a little bit of oil into the oil slot. Let's see if that helps this loosen up a little bit. Yeah, it's getting a little bit looser here. There we go. Starting to work that around a little bit, because you don't want any binding on this at all. Okay, now let's see how that set screw looks there. Turn that up so I can get right on it. I don't know if you can see through the front here. The screw going into the set screw. Well, I can see by how far that set screw is going in that I'm on the flat part. So I think we're good here. When we get the needle bar installed, then we can test how well it works, and we can make any further adjustments at that time. Okay, so there we go. That's the installation of the thread take-up lever, the thread take-up stud, and the needle bar connecting link. So now that we've got those back pieces in, the next thing we can do is install the needle bar. So that'll be the next video. Thanks so much for watching.